Welcome to, or welcome back to, T24 podcast by Bunmi Odulaja, which caters for various aspects of your life. If you're single, or if you're in a relationship that you're hoping would lead to marriage, or even if you're a married person, there is always something for each person. So I will be talking to you as a certified counselor, coach, mentor, as well as being married for almost 3 decades. In this series, I will be discussing conflict resolution. Yes, conflict resolution. You know, as a trained counselor, I've worked alongside so many couples, and this is one thing that comes up over and over again. So I'll be walking through with you over the next 4 episodes on this issue and how you deal with conflict in relationship. What you will find is the focus of this would also not just be on just marital relationship, but you will pick up tips for any relationship that you might be in. Okay, so either, as I said before, either in a friendship, in a work relationship, in a family situation, this series would cover different tips for you in navigating conflict resolution. As I said before, from my experience as a trained counselor, I'm also a trained mediator. So I have been in situations where I'm working alongside individuals when they have been in conflict situation. I lead the marriage ministry in my church. I'm also part of, I lead the counseling ministry in my church. So I'll be coming from those angles in this series. So how do we navigate this? Truth be told, in any relationship that you have, if there is congress, there will be a difference of opinion, for sure. You are different. Even if you're a twin, you are different from your twin. The issue is not the fact that there is conflict. The issue is how, as a whole, you are handling and resolving conflict. Let's start by laying foundations. What is the definition of conflict? I'm sure you'll be asking yourself. To define conflict, the definition of conflict in the dictionary says that it is a serious disagreement, an argument, typically a protracted one. It is a serious incompatibility between one or two opinions, principles, or interest. Conflict can be described also as a friction, difference, mismatch, divergence, irreconcilable difference. To think about it closely, conflict is also a sign that there is a need for change. It's an opportunity for growth, new understanding, new learning, improving communication. Resolution, on the other hand, is defined as something settled or outcome of a decision. It is the act of being resolute about something. Now that we have defined what conflict resolution is, why is it important to resolve conflict in the appropriate way? Conflict cannot be resolved in isolation or by avoidance. Okay, maybe temporarily. But substantial issue would remain unless it is discussed and resolved between the parties. For me, I like to look at conflict in 2 ways: small letter C conflict or capital letter C conflict. Small letter C conflict is where minor irritations exist in a relationship. And capital C in conflict for me is where there is a serious divergence. Interestingly, the Bible is not silent on the issue of conflict. As we journey through the series, I will endeavor to provide references to scripture so that you can make sure that you have something that you're writing with. So please get a writing material down or jot it on your phone. Let's look at a couple of scriptures before we go into this. Ephesians 4:26 to 28 in the New International Version says, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down whilst you're still angry. Do not give the enemy a foothold." Matthew 5:23 to 24 in the NIV says, "Therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar, and there you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. Go and reconcile with them, then come and offer your gift." I have a couple of questions for you. What do these scriptures mean to you? How often have you practiced them? I want you to pause and think about this for a couple of minutes. Think about those scriptures as we continue. Now that you have had time to ponder upon those scriptures that I read out to you earlier, let's start to walk through how you manage conflict positively. One thing I can say to you for a fact is that those scriptures definitely convict me. Each time I find myself in a conflict situation where I feel wronged and aggrieved by a matter, and I feel, in myself, I feel justified in my feeling. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there will not be situations where you have been wronged. But what I'm talking about here is, are you prepared to make a decision to be Christ-like and do not allow the offense to lead you into sin? I'm fully aware that we are all work in progress, and I give you a short story into my life. When I was a much younger Christian, when people offended me, and depending on who they are, especially if I didn't get a chance to give that person a piece of my mind, I would ponder, I would rehearse what I could have said to that person, so that that person can feel a little of the hurt that it caused me. I used to joke with my friends in those days that I would take off my, Christianity so that I could deal with the conflict. Clearly, boy, oh boy, that was not the right way as a Christian to handle conflict. Christianity is not a religious cloak that you put on and off. It is a way of life. And thank God for grace and revelation. I'm not that person anymore. I have grown. And I realized it wasn't good for my mental or physical health neither. I don't know about you, but there were times when people offended me. And, you might be going around stone-faced, tight-chested, steam coming out of your nostrils, and the other person has no clue that they have offended you. They're living their best life while you stay angry. It's interesting. Let me go back to my example. When God started to teach me about forgiveness, at first it was painful because I thought that God was asking me to do something, to give up and release these individuals who have offended me. But God reminded me that I was also forgiven. And it was important that I do forgive other people. Okay? So let's go and look at this. And sometimes the way we resolve conflict might stem from how we were raised, what we were observed, what we observed growing up. And in counseling, we call this faulty thinking. And I must say that before I got married, I definitely had this faulty thinking. I used to be very good at keeping malice. Yes. If you offended me, I cut you off. You don't exist. Thank God for Jesus that I'm no longer that person. I'm able to now speak and talk through those situations. Having been married for almost 3 decades, I remember early days of my marriage where I was like that, cold shoulder. And my husband's like, "What's wrong with you?" I wasn't really answering him. Like, you should know. Go figure. But again, that is the wrong way of dealing with conflict. As I mentioned earlier, over the years, God has continued to work on me, grow me in that area. And I've now come to a place where I can have positive conversation in a way that is, healthy for resolving conflict. Now, let me give you a couple of scripture. Proverbs 12:18 says, "Some people make cutting remarks, but the words of the wise bring healing." If you're in conflict situation, rather than just lashing out, cutting remarks being made, think about the words we use that are wise. James 1:19 and 20 says, My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger do not produce righteousness that God desires. So it is important, as we bring this to a close today, I really need you to ponder on how you have up to date be handling conflict resolution. Are you like what I was like, giving the cold shoulder, keeping malice, cutting them cold? Or are you now more like the person that you want, that Christ will want us to be like? Being constructive, but being open to resolving conflict in a way that is edifying, in a way that is constructive, in a way that brings about resolution. Because at the end of the day, the series is called Conflict Resolution. So how do we resolve conflict by, as we journey along in our relationships? I will be looking at that further with you in future episodes. Thank you for listening to T2 podcast by Bunmi Odulaja in the series Conflict Resolution. See you in the next episode.